Tonight, we are going to spend a very long and very quiet day in a medieval town. There will be no battles tonight. No kings will be dramatically betrayed. No castle will suddenly catch fire. No army will appear over the hill. Nothing particularly exciting is going to happen at all. Instead, we are going to think about something much more ordinary. We are going to think about how people washed their faces, how they combed their hair, how they cleaned their clothes, how they smelled, how they looked into small mirrors, and how ideas about beauty quietly shaped everyday life hundreds of years ago. So make yourself comfortable. Allow your shoulders to become heavy. Let your breathing become slower. And imagine that somewhere beyond your room, beyond the lights and sounds of the modern world, a small medieval town is beginning another completely ordinary morning. It is still dark outside. The sun has not yet appeared above the fields. A rooster somewhere behind a wooden fence has decided that everyone should be awake. Nobody asked the rooster, but the rooster is very confident about the matter. Inside a small upstairs room of an inn, a traveler begins to wake. The room is simple. There is a wooden bed. There is a wool blanket. There is a chest for clothing. There is a stool. There is a small table, and on that table sits a ceramic basin. The basin is not connected to any plumbing. There is no silver tap. There is no hot water button. There is simply a basin. Beside it is a jug. Water has been carried upstairs by hand, and that alone tells us something important about medieval cleanliness. Water was available, but water required effort. Someone had to collect it. Someone had to carry it. Someone had to heat it if warm water was wanted. And so washing was not impossible. It was simply less convenient than turning a modern faucet. Our traveler sits up slowly. The floorboards are cold. The morning air is colder. He pulls on a linen shirt. Then he reaches toward the basin. The water inside is cool. He splashes some onto his face. Perhaps he uses a cloth. Perhaps he wipes around his eyes. Perhaps he cleans his hands. This is not a grand bathing ceremony. It is simply the medieval version of standing sleepily at a bathroom sink. People in the Middle Ages did wash. The old idea that every medieval person wandered around permanently covered in dirt is much too simple. Cleanliness mattered. It mattered socially. It mattered practically. And in many communities, it also mattered spiritually. Hands were washed before meals. Faces were washed. Clothing was cleaned. Hair was combed. Bathhouses existed in many towns. People simply did these things differently from the way we do them today. Our traveler finishes washing his face. Now he reaches for a comb. A medieval comb could be made from wood. It could be made from bone. It could be made from horn. Wealthier people might own more decorative examples. Some combs had widely spaced teeth on one side. They had finer teeth on the other. The wide teeth helped arrange the hair. The fine teeth could help remove small, unwanted visitors. And those visitors were unfortunately a normal problem. Lice did not care whether a person was rich or poor. Lice were very democratic. A noblewoman with embroidered sleeves could have them. A farmer could have them. A monk could have them. A merchant could have them. And so careful combing was not simply about looking attractive. It was useful. It was routine. And it could occupy a surprisingly quiet part of the morning. Imagine sitting beside a narrow window. Imagine pale morning light slowly entering the room. Imagine the repetitive movement of a comb passing through hair. Again, and again, and again. Nothing dramatic, just another day beginning. Outside, doors are opening. Shutters are being pushed outward. Smoke is beginning to rise from chimneys. Someone is carrying bread. Someone is carrying a bucket. Someone is already arguing with a donkey. The donkey is probably winning. Our traveler steps outside. The street is narrow. The buildings lean slightly toward one another. Their upper floors sometimes extend farther than the lower floors. Wooden signs hang above shops. The ground is uneven, and after rain, it can be muddy. If you wanted to remain perfectly clean in a medieval street, the street itself would quickly disagree with you. Shoes became dirty. Hems became dirty. Hands became dirty. Work created dirt. Smoke created soot. Cooking created grease. Animals created many things that we will politely avoid describing in detail. So cleanliness was often a repeated task, rather than a permanent condition. You cleaned yourself. You became dirty. You cleaned yourself again. A very familiar human experience. Our traveler walks toward a small bakery. Fresh bread is being removed from an oven. Before eating, he may wash his hands. In wealthier households, servants could bring water for hand washing. At formal meals, hand washing might be part of good manners. This matters because medieval people often ate directly with their fingers. Forks existed in some places and periods, but they were far from universal at the table. A knife was common. A spoon was common, and hands were useful. Clean hands, therefore, mattered. Our traveler eats some bread. Perhaps there is cheese. Perhaps there is a little weak ale. Perhaps there is nothing more exciting than yesterday's bread softened in something warm. This is supposed to be a boring story, after all. Across the street, a young apprentice is opening a barber's shop. The barber is not simply someone who makes hair shorter. Depending on the time and place, barbers performed a collection of personal services. Hair cutting was one. Beard trimming was another. Some barbers were also connected with medical procedures. But tonight, we are not interested in anything unpleasant. We are staying firmly with hair. Hair carried meaning. It could suggest age, occupation, status, fashion, respectability, religion, and sometimes rebellion. Men's hairstyles changed across centuries, just as hairstyles change now. There was never one single medieval haircut. The Middle Ages lasted for roughly 1,000 years. That is a very long time to keep the same hairstyle. A man in the 11th century and a man in the 15th century might have very different ideas about what looked fashionable. Some periods preferred shorter hair. Others allowed longer styles. Facial hair also changed. Beards came into fashion. Beards went out of fashion. Mustaches appeared. Faces became clean-shaven. And then a later generation could decide that beards looked respectable again. Human beings have apparently been repeatedly discovering and abandoning facial hair for a very long time. The barber sharpens a razor. The sound is soft. Scrape, pause, scrape, pause. A customer sits on a stool. A cloth is placed around his shoulders. There is no electric clipper, no buzzing machine, no plastic comb. The process is slower. Scissors do the work. A razor handles the face. The barber works carefully. The customer sits still. Outside, carts continue rolling past. Imagine the slow rhythm of that haircut. A little hair falls to the floor. The barber adjusts his hand. Another small lock falls. There is nowhere to hurry, and for our purposes tonight, that is perfect. Farther along the street is a cellar of small personal items. Combs, pins, ribbons, needles, simple containers, perhaps little pieces of polished metal, perhaps small mirrors. A medieval mirror was not usually the enormous clear object hanging over a modern bathroom sink. Glass mirrors improved over time. Polished metal mirrors were also used. A mirror could be small. Its reflection could be imperfect, and yet people still wanted to see themselves. That desire is very old. Imagine lifting a small polished mirror toward the morning light. You see your face, but perhaps not with perfect clarity. The reflection is slightly dark, perhaps slightly distorted. There are no bright bathroom lights. There is no magnifying mirror. There is certainly no front-facing phone camera. There is simply your face appearing quietly in a small reflective surface. For many medieval people, appearance was judged more often through the eyes of other people than through endless self-inspection. You could not check your reflection every 30 seconds. There were no shop windows made from giant sheets of modern glass. There were no photographs, no video, no social media. You knew what you looked like. but you probably spent far less time seeing your own face than a modern person does. This alone makes medieval beauty interesting. Beauty existed partly in imagination, partly in description, partly in paintings, partly in poetry, and partly in the reactions of other people. Now the town is fully awake. We leave the barber behind and walk toward the market square. The market is not enormous, but it is busy. There are vegetables, grain, fish, fabric, tools, pottery, herbs, wax, leather, and many other things. Among ordinary household ingredients are substances that could be used for washing and grooming. Soap existed. Medieval soap was not identical everywhere. Different regions developed different traditions. Some soaps were made using fats and alkaline substances. In parts of the Mediterranean, olive oil soaps had a long history. Soap could be valuable. It could be locally produced. It could be traded. And it could be used for bodies, textiles, or household purposes. But not everyone stood under a shower every morning, covering themselves in scented foam. A full bath required water, often lots of water, and possibly fuel to heat it. That made bathing easier in some places than others. Urban bathhouses solved part of this problem. Instead of every household preparing large amounts of warm water independently, people could visit bathing establishments. Bathhouses were found in many medieval European towns. Their popularity changed over time. Local customs changed. Attitudes changed. Disease fears eventually affected some bathing traditions. But the important point is simple. Medieval Europeans were not universally terrified of water. Some people enjoyed baths very much, possibly too much, according to certain moral critics. And moral critics are often extremely useful historians, because they complain about everything people enjoy. If someone writes an angry warning telling people to stop spending so much time at bathhouses, it strongly suggests that people were spending time at bathhouses. So we follow our traveler toward one. The building is warmer than the street. Water is being heated. Steam gathers in the air. Wooden tubs may be prepared. Cloths are nearby. People could bathe. They could wash. They could socialize. Depending on local customs, food and drink might also be available. Some establishments earned questionable reputations. Others simply provided bathing. But tonight, ours is exceptionally boring. No scandal happens. Nobody starts an argument. Nobody loses a purse. Nobody falls dramatically into a tub. A man sits in warm water. Another person quietly pours water from a jug. Someone folds a cloth. That is all. The room smells faintly of wood smoke and warm water. Our traveler lowers himself into a tub. The water is comfortably warm. After walking on dusty roads, this feels good. A bath removes sweat. It softens dirt. It relaxes muscles, exactly as it does now. The basic pleasure of warm water requires very little technological improvement. A warm bath in the year 1200 could still feel like a warm bath. The difference was everything required to prepare it. Imagine the fire. Imagine the pots. Imagine the buckets. Imagine the person who carried those buckets. Imagine how many trips were required. Suddenly, a modern hot water system seems rather impressive. Our traveler washes. Perhaps soap is used. Perhaps a cloth is used. Perhaps the hair is rinsed. Hair care was important because hair could be one of the most visible markers of beauty. In many medieval European beauty ideals, especially those represented in elite art and literature, women were often praised for long hair. Golden or light-colored hair could be especially admired in some traditions. But real medieval Europe contained people with many natural hair colors. Brown hair did not disappear because poets liked gold. Black hair continued growing peacefully, despite literary preferences. Red hair existed. Gray hair existed. And countless women spent their lives entirely unconcerned with whether a court poet would approve. Beauty standards are rarely descriptions of everyone. They are ideals, and ideals are often strongest among people with time and money to pursue them. A wealthy noblewoman could spend more effort on elaborate grooming than a farm worker preparing for a long day in the fields. This is not because the farm worker did not care about appearance. It is because wheat does not harvest itself, while someone spends 3 hours arranging ribbons. Time itself was a luxury. Our traveler leaves the bath. He dries himself. There are no fluffy hotel towels waiting in neat stacks. Linen cloths can be used. The clothing goes back on. The shirt, the outer garment, the belt, perhaps a cloak if the air is cold. And then he returns to the street feeling cleaner and slightly more respectable. Now we move away from him for a while. Our story drifts upward, across the roofs, past a chimney, past a pigeon that has no interest in history, and into a larger house near the center of town. Inside, a household is beginning its own morning routine. A young woman sits near a window. Her hair is loose because she is still inside. Another woman helps comb it. Long hair takes patience. The comb passes from the ends upward. Knots are worked out. Hair can be braided. It can be pinned. It can be covered. For married women in many medieval communities, covering the hair was socially expected. The exact style depended on place and century. Veils, wimples, kerchiefs, caps, nets, and increasingly complex headdresses appeared. Fashion can take the simple human head and turn it into an architectural project. Some later medieval elite fashions became wonderfully elaborate. Fabric rose above the head. Veils extended outward. Shapes changed. People complained. Authorities occasionally tried to regulate excessive fashion, and fashion usually continued anyway. But our woman today chooses something simple. Her hair is parted. It is braided. The braids are arranged. A clean cloth covering is prepared. The motions are careful. Comb, separate, braid, pin, cover. A familiar routine, transformed by medieval materials. Hair washing happened too, though not necessarily with the same frequency or products used today. People could rinse hair. They could use herbal preparations. They could use cleansing mixtures. And they could comb thoroughly. Certain ingredients appear in historical grooming traditions, though recipes varied enormously. Herbs could provide scent. Vinegar might be used in household cleaning and grooming contexts. Rosewater became valued in elite settings. Oils could condition or scent, and various homemade mixtures promised improvements. Humans have always enjoyed inventing complicated things to put on their hair. Some worked reasonably well. Some probably did very little. Some may have smelled pleasant. Some probably smelled less pleasant. And some beauty recipes from the past are best left firmly in the past. Our young woman looks into a small mirror. She touches one eyebrow. In certain periods and elite circles, a high forehead could be fashionable. Later medieval beauty ideals sometimes emphasized a pale face and a tall, smooth forehead. Women associated with courtly fashion might adjust hair near the hairline. Eyebrows could also be shaped. But again, we should not imagine every woman across medieval Europe doing exactly the same thing. A fashionable noblewoman in Burgundy did not necessarily look like a merchant's wife in Florence. A woman in England did not necessarily follow the same preferences as a woman in Iberia. A village did not automatically copy the court, and the 14th century did not dress exactly like the 12th. The medieval world was wonderfully inconvenient for anyone seeking one simple rule. It kept changing. The woman finishes arranging her head covering. Now she washes her hands. Hands were another visible part of appearance. In literature, delicate hands could be praised. Clean hands suggested refinement. But ordinary work was hard on them. Cooking, spinning, dyeing, farming, washing, carrying, grinding, sewing, all left marks. A person's hands often revealed what that person actually did all day. There was no hiding a lifetime of physical work behind a single expensive cream. Still, oils and salves could be used to soothe skin. Animal fats, plant oils, wax-based preparations, herbs. Different households had different recipes. A small container of salve could be practical, rather than purely cosmetic. Dry skin cracks. Hands become sore. Cold weather is unpleasant. Human skin has been complaining about winter for thousands of years. Outside the house, we move toward another street. Here, the smell changes. There is smoke. There is wet wool. There are dyes. There is laundry. Laundry may not sound like beauty, but clean clothing was central to appearing clean. This is especially important in a world where full-body bathing may require significant effort. Linen worn close to the skin absorbed sweat and body oils. Changing and washing linen could make a person feel much cleaner. A fresh linen shirt mattered. A clean shift mattered. Outer wool garments did not always need the same washing treatment as underclothes. They could be brushed, aired, spot cleaned, maintained. Laundry itself was hard work. Imagine hauling water, heating water, applying soap or alkaline washing agents, rubbing fabric, rinsing it, wringing it, drying it. Doing this without a washing machine, without a dryer, without a plastic bottle marked delicate cycle. Laundry was labor, and because it was labor, clothing maintenance was taken seriously. Garments were repaired, stains were treated, fabric was valuable. A torn sleeve was not automatically thrown away. It was mended. A worn section could be patched. Buttons or fastenings could be replaced. Clothing lived longer lives, and appearance depended partly on how well those lives were managed. A servant lifts a wet piece of linen. Water runs from the cloth. She twists it. Another person helps. Together they wring it. Then the linen is spread to dry. One piece, then another, then another. If you need to fall asleep, there are few historical subjects more dependable than medieval laundry. So we will remain here for a little while. A shirt is rinsed. A second shirt is rinsed. A cloth is folded. Another cloth is unfolded, because it is still damp. A basket is moved 3 feet to the left. Someone realizes it was better where it was before. The basket is moved back. History continues. Nearby, clothing hangs in the air. Sunlight slowly reaches the courtyard. Clean fabric has its own smell. Not modern detergent. Not artificial lavender mountain breeze. Simply water, soap, air, fabric, perhaps a faint trace of smoke from the town. Now we walk again. At the edge of the market, an herbal seller has arranged bundles on a table. Rosemary, sage, mint, lavender in suitable regions and seasons. Other local herbs. Plants were used for food, medicine, household work, religious practice, and scent. Smell mattered in medieval life. The world contained many strong odors: wood smoke, animals, leather tanning, fish markets, cooking, waste, wet streets, sweat, herbs, flowers, incense, fresh bread, manure, wine, wax. The medieval town was not one single terrible smell. It was thousands of smells, changing from street to street. People appreciated pleasant scents. Flowers could be used. Herbs could be carried. Scented waters appeared in elite grooming. Perfumed substances were traded. Later medieval elites sometimes used pomanders, containing fragrant materials. A pomander could be carried or worn. It might contain expensive aromatic ingredients. Partly this was about pleasure. Partly it reflected older ideas about health and air. People often believed foul air could contribute to illness. A pleasant smell, therefore, could seem both attractive and protective. Imagine opening a small container. Inside are spices and fragrant materials that have traveled farther than most people ever will. Cloves, cinnamon, musk, ambergris in elite perfumery. Imported substances could be extremely valuable. A wealthy person's scent might quietly announce access to international trade. A simple village household would more likely rely on local plants, mint from a garden, rose petals, herbs drying from rafters. The difference between luxury perfume and a handful of fresh herbs is enormous economically. But both reveal the same human preference. People like things that smell nice. Our herbal seller ties a bundle with string. A customer buys it. No dramatic negotiation occurs. The price is accepted. The bundle disappears into a basket. We continue. Now we reach a household preparing a meal. You may wonder what cooking has to do with beauty. Quite a lot, indirectly. Diet affected appearance. But medieval nutritional advice was very different from modern advice. Medical thinking was heavily influenced by humoral theory. People believed health depended on balancing bodily qualities associated with the four humors. Foods were categorized according to qualities such as hot, cold, wet, and dry. Physicians might recommend diets based on these ideas. We do not need to understand every detail tonight. That would be dangerously close to becoming interesting. Instead, imagine a bowl of porridge. Very ordinary porridge. A wooden spoon moves through it. Slowly. A little salt is added. The porridge continues being porridge. Healthy-looking skin could be admired, but the ideal pale complexion found in some elite medieval art had complicated meanings. Paleness could suggest that a person did not labor outside under the sun. That made it partly a class signal. If your skin remained pale, perhaps you were wealthy enough to spend more time indoors. A farmer could not politely ask the sun to avoid the face during harvest season. Work created tanning. Wind reddened skin. Cold changed skin. Life left evidence. Elite beauty ideals often praised features connected with privilege, because privilege itself was desirable. This pattern appears again and again in history. When most people work outside, indoor paleness can become fashionable. When many people work indoors, a suntan can later become a sign that someone has leisure time for holidays. Beauty standards have a sense of humor. They often demand whatever is hardest for ordinary people to obtain. Our medieval noblewoman may prefer a pale complexion. She can protect herself from strong sunlight. She can wear head coverings. She can spend more time inside. Cosmetic preparations might also be used. Historical beauty recipes include powders, washes, creams, and mixtures intended to improve the skin. Ingredients could include perfectly ordinary materials. Others could be unpleasant. Some could even be harmful. Lead-based whitening preparations are known across long stretches of history, becoming especially notorious in later periods. People did not have modern toxicology labels warning them about every ingredient. A recipe could circulate because someone believed it worked, and if it produced a visible result quickly, that could be enough. Fortunately, our fictional household tonight is cautious. They use nothing alarming. A woman simply washes her face with water and a soft cloth. She applies a mild scented preparation. She looks into the mirror. She decides everything is acceptable. The mirror offers no opinion. Now let us consider teeth. Medieval dental care is another subject surrounded by myths. People did clean their teeth. They did not have modern plastic toothbrushes and mint fluoride toothpaste. But they had methods. Cloths could be used to rub teeth. Chewing sticks or small pieces of wood could be used in different cultures. Powders and mixtures might be applied. Herbs could freshen the breath. Salt could appear in cleaning preparations. Of course, dental problems were common. Without modern dentistry, a serious toothache could become miserable. But medieval diets were also different from modern sugar-heavy diets. Refined sugar was expensive for much of the period, and not consumed by ordinary Europeans in the quantities common today. This did not make medieval teeth perfect. Wear, infection, disease, and tooth loss still existed. But the simple idea that everyone had completely rotten teeth is inaccurate. Our traveler after breakfast notices something between two teeth. He deals with it. A tiny piece of wood may serve. Then he rinses his mouth. This is an extremely boring event. He has successfully completed medieval dental maintenance. Congratulations to him. We leave before anything more exciting occurs. The church bell sounds. People begin moving through the square. Religion shaped ideas about clothing and appearance. Christian writers often warned against vanity. Excessive luxury could be criticized. Elaborate cosmetics could attract suspicion. Expensive clothing could be condemned as prideful. But warnings against vanity did not eliminate vanity. If anything, the number of warnings suggests that people remained impressively interested in looking good. Fashion continued changing. People purchased fine fabric. People wore jewelry. People decorated belts. People arranged hair. People admired beautiful clothing. Preachers complained. People listened. Then some people went home and continued dressing fashionably. This repeated for centuries. Authorities sometimes issued sumptuary laws. These laws attempted to control what different social groups could wear. Rules could limit expensive fabrics, furs, jewels, colors, decorative elements. The purpose might involve preserving social hierarchy, reducing extravagance, or supporting moral ideas. Enforcement varied. People are creative when rules interfere with fashion. A merchant who becomes wealthy naturally wants to look wealthy. An aristocrat would prefer that the merchant remain visually identifiable as a merchant. Clothing becomes an argument conducted with sleeves. Our traveler watches people pass. A laborer wears practical wool. A merchant's clothing fits more carefully. A prosperous woman has finer fabric. A noble visitor displays expensive materials. Beauty is not merely the shape of a face. It is presentation, fabric quality, cleanliness, fit, color, posture, accessories, hair, scent. All these details communicate before a person speaks. Color itself can be expensive. Dyes require materials and skill. Some colors are easier to achieve than others. Some fade. Some require repeated processing. Certain rich shades can signal wealth. A bright, deep, well-dyed garment may catch the eye simply because producing it cost money. Imagine entering a room filled mostly with earthy or muted clothing and seeing one person wearing vivid, imported, or carefully dyed fabric. That person becomes noticeable. No flashing sign is necessary. The cloth does the work. But tonight, we are avoiding grand halls. We follow a seamstress instead. She sits near good light. A garment rests across her lap. She checks a seam. The stitching is small. Her fingers move steadily. Needle through. Pull. Needle through. Pull. The beauty of medieval clothing depended heavily on skilled human hands. There were no industrial sewing machines. No giant factories producing thousands of identical shirts every hour. Fabric was woven, cut, sewn, adjusted, repaired, decorated. Every stage took time, and because fabric was valuable, fit and maintenance mattered. The seamstress continues. Needle through. Pull. Needle through. Pull. Outside, clouds drift across the sky. Inside, one sleeve becomes slightly more finished than it was 5 minutes ago. This is progress. Very slow progress. Exactly the kind of progress we need tonight. Now, let us travel from town to countryside. The road leaves the gate. The houses become fewer. Fields spread outward. A village sits beside farmland. Here, beauty routines are practical. A woman wakes before sunrise. There are animals to feed. Food to prepare, water to collect, work to begin. She still washes, she still combs her hair, she still cares about clothing. But her routine must fit around labor. Hair is braided or covered, because loose hair gets in the way. A head covering protects it from dust. Clean linen feels good against the skin. On special days, clothing may be finer. Festivals, weddings, church days, markets. These are opportunities for careful presentation. Humans do not stop caring about appearance simply because they are busy. Instead, appearance becomes connected with occasion. There are ordinary clothes, and better clothes, work clothes, and celebration clothes. A chest may contain a garment saved for important days. Imagine opening that chest. The fabric has been folded carefully. Perhaps herbs are stored nearby. The garment is lifted, smoothed, checked for damage. A loose thread is noticed. The thread is repaired. Then the garment is ready. This small act connects our medieval household to countless households across time. The good clothes are kept for good occasions. Many grandparents would understand immediately. The village woman washes her hands and face. Her hair is arranged. She fastens her clothing. There is no need for perfection. There is only a desire to look neat. A concept much older than any fashion magazine. Nearby, a man prepares for the same occasion. He brushes dirt from his clothing. He checks his shoes. Shoes are valuable items. Leather requires maintenance. Mud must be removed. A damaged shoe must be repaired. The local cobbler may know everyone's feet better than anyone would prefer. The man smooths his hair. Perhaps he trims his beard. Perhaps he shaves it completely depending on fashion. He checks himself in a small reflection. He decides the result is good enough. Good enough has probably been humanity's most common beauty standard. We now move toward a monastery. Life here follows a different rhythm. Monastic rules emphasize discipline, simplicity, routine. Appearance can reflect humility. Hair may be cut according to religious custom. For monks in Western Europe, the tonsure became a recognizable feature in many periods. Forms varied. The point was not fashion, in the courtly sense. It marked religious identity. But even simplicity requires maintenance. Hair must still be cut. Clothing must still be washed. Bodies must still be cared for. Monastic communities had systems for hygiene, laundry, infirmary care, and bathing according to their rules and circumstances. The exact frequency differed across houses and centuries. Again, there is no universal medieval schedule. One monastery might have certain bathing customs. Another might be stricter. Climate mattered. Resources mattered. Rules mattered. Health mattered. The human body remained stubbornly physical regardless of theology. A monk walks through a cloister carrying folded cloth. Another tends herbs. Monastic gardens could contain medicinal and useful plants. The air smells of soil. Leaves move gently. There is almost no sound. A bee visits a flower. The bee has not read any monastic rules. It continues working. We should follow its example by doing very little dramatically. Now afternoon approaches. Back in the town, sunlight falls across upper windows. A noble household prepares for visitors. This gives us a chance to examine courtly beauty ideals more closely. In medieval literature, an idealized beautiful woman might be described using a familiar collection of features: a pale complexion, rosy cheeks, bright eyes, a smooth forehead, fine eyebrows, a small or well-shaped mouth, long hair, sometimes golden hair. These descriptions were poetic conventions. Writers repeated them. Artists used visual conventions too. They were not scientific surveys of what every medieval person found attractive. Real attraction, as always, was more complicated. Personality mattered. Status mattered. Family connections mattered. Wealth mattered. Health mattered. And marriage was frequently shaped by practical concerns that had nothing to do with romantic beauty. Still, literary ideals influenced culture. A young aristocratic woman preparing for an event might pay attention to complexion, hairline, hair arrangement, clothing, jewelry. A servant brings a basin. The woman washes. Another servant brings a comb. Her hair is arranged. A veil is positioned. It is adjusted, then adjusted again. The left side is slightly higher. It is lowered. Now the right side seems wrong. The right side is moved. Now the left side appears wrong again. Nothing has changed about human grooming. Eventually, someone says it looks fine. Everyone agrees because they would like to move on with the day. A brooch is selected. Then another brooch is considered. The first brooch is selected again. The second brooch returns to the box. This is the medieval equivalent of trying on 3 outfits and wearing the first one. Jewelry could be practical as well as decorative. Brooches fastened fabric, belts held objects, pins secured veils. Decoration and function often blended together. Materials announced wealth: gold, silver, enamel, gemstones, pearls. Less wealthy people could use simpler materials. Beauty exists at every price level. A small bronze pin can still be cherished. A ribbon can still be chosen because its color is pleasing. A carved comb can still be someone's favorite possession. Now the men of the household prepare. Male beauty standards mattered too. Courtly literature could admire handsome men, good proportions, clear skin, well-kept hair, fine clothing, strength, youth, noble bearing. But male fashion could become just as elaborate as female fashion. Tunics changed length, sleeves changed, shoes changed, hats changed, silhouettes changed. Later medieval fashion could become remarkably fitted. Tailoring highlighted the body. Some shoes developed very long pointed toes. Fashionable pointed shoes could become exaggerated enough to attract criticism. Imagine looking at a shoe and deciding it needs several more inches before it truly expresses your personality. Humanity has always been capable of this. Our nobleman chooses shoes that are moderately pointed. He is not trying to injure anyone standing nearby. His hair has been recently trimmed. His face is shaved. He applies a little scent. He fastens his belt. He straightens his garment. Then he immediately asks another person whether the garment is sitting correctly. The answer is yes. He adjusts it anyway. Outside, horses are being prepared. The gathering begins. We are not going to attend. Gatherings contain conversation. Conversation might become interesting. Instead, we walk into the empty dressing chamber after everyone leaves. There is the basin, the comb, a small mirror, a wooden box, folded cloth, a few pins, a container that once held scented preparation. Sunlight slowly moves across the table. Nothing happens. For several peaceful moments, history becomes completely still. Now evening is approaching. People who spent the day working begin returning home. Hands are washed, faces are wiped, mud is removed from shoes, clothing is brushed, dinner is prepared. At a wealthier table, hand washing happens again before eating. Water is poured over fingers. A towel is offered. Guests take their places. Cleanliness becomes part of courtesy. The meal begins. We leave because medieval dining can become surprisingly complicated, and we are trying to remain sleepy. Instead, we visit the laundry courtyard again. The linen from morning is dry. One piece is removed. Then another. Then another. They are folded. The folds are simple. A rectangle becomes a smaller rectangle. Then an even smaller rectangle. The linen is placed in a chest. There is something deeply satisfying about finished laundry, even in the Middle Ages. Now, let us think about scent once more. Before modern deodorant, antiperspirant, daily showers, washing machines, climate-controlled rooms, and synthetic fragrance, people managed body odor through multiple strategies. Washing helped. Clean underclothes helped. Changing linen helped. Herbs and perfumes helped. Airy garments helped. And social expectations adjusted to the realities of the period. The modern nose lives in a very different environment. We encounter scented soap, scented detergent, shampoo, conditioner, deodorant, air freshener, fabric softener, toothpaste, cleaning sprays. Modern life is saturated with manufactured fragrance. A medieval person entering a modern supermarket cleaning aisle might find the smell overwhelming. Similarly, a modern traveler dropped into a medieval tannery district would probably turn around immediately. Every age develops its own normal. Beauty standards do the same. What seems obvious to one generation can look strange to another. A fashionable medieval headdress may look unusual now. A modern person wearing false eyelashes, hair extensions, colored contact lenses, Foundation, contouring makeup, perfume, nail polish, and carefully shaped eyebrows might look equally unusual to someone from the year 1250. Neither person is naturally more sensible. They simply understand different rules. And most beauty rules are invisible until we leave our own time. Our medieval town becomes darker. Candles appear behind windows. Oil lamps glow. Fireplaces give warmth. People remove outer garments. Head coverings come off in private. Hair may be loosened. A comb may appear again. Imagine the young woman from morning sitting beside the same window. There is no daylight now. A candle burns nearby. She removes pins one by one. One pin, then another, then another. The veil is folded. The braids are loosened. Hair falls down. She combs it gently. The day's small tangles disappear. The routine is slow. There is no hair dryer waiting. No heated styling tool. No electric light. Only combing. Perhaps her hair will be braided loosely before sleep. Perhaps it will remain arranged to reduce tangling. She checks the ends. She places the comb down. A basin of water is brought. She washes her face. The day's dust comes away. Her hands are cleaned. The water darkens slightly. A cloth is rinsed. The room becomes quiet again. Across town, our traveler prepares for bed. He removes his shoes. He checks them, because one sole has begun wearing thin. Tomorrow, he may need a cobbler. This is the greatest unresolved tension in our story. A slightly worn shoe. He places the shoes beside the bed. His outer clothing is removed. His linen shirt remains. He washes his hands. He splashes water onto his face. He rubs his teeth with a cloth. He looks briefly into a small mirror. The face looking back is tired. It has spent an entire day learning about medieval grooming. Understandably. He places the mirror down. Outside, the street is quieter. A final cart passes. Its wooden wheels make a slow, uneven sound. The cart disappears. A dog barks once, then decides there is nothing worth continuing to bark about. Somewhere a door closes. The town settles. But before we sleep, we should travel through the seasons, because medieval grooming changed with the year. Imagine winter. Water is colder. Rooms are colder. Getting undressed is less appealing. A full bath requires more fuel. Skin becomes dry. Hands crack. Wool garments become essential. Smoke gathers indoors. Hair remains covered against the weather. Laundry dries more slowly. Everything takes longer. A basin of icy water early in the morning requires courage. Someone may warm water near the fire. Steam rises gently. A cloth is dipped. The face is washed. Warm water feels precious. Salves may soothe dry hands. Lip balms in the modern sense do not come in small plastic tubes, but fats and waxes can protect skin. A person wraps a cloak more tightly. Winter beauty is partly the art of staying warm enough to care about beauty at all. Now spring. The roads remain muddy. But plants return. Fresh herbs become available. Clothing can be aired. More washing can happen outdoors. Light lasts longer. Markets become busier. A young person preparing for a spring festival takes extra care with clothing. Shoes are cleaned. Hair is combed. A ribbon is chosen. The ribbon is changed. Then changed back. Again, some traditions never disappear. Summer arrives. Now sweat becomes a larger problem. Washing is welcome. Rivers and outdoor water sources may tempt bathers, where safe and socially accepted. Bathhouses remain warm, perhaps too warm. Work under the sun darkens skin. Head coverings provide shade. Clothing becomes lighter where possible. Herbs smell stronger. Flowers are available. People carry pleasant scents. Dust rises from dry roads. Faces need washing at the end of the day. Feet especially need washing after travel. Imagine taking off medieval shoes after walking 10 miles in summer. Actually, perhaps do not imagine that too carefully. Let the thought pass. Autumn comes. Harvest dominates rural life. People work long hours. Clothing becomes dusty. Hands become rough. At the end of the day, practical washing matters more than fashionable preparation. Yet celebrations follow harvest. Better clothes return. Hair is carefully arranged. A brooch shines in candlelight. Someone has saved a small amount of scented oil for a special evening. Life moves between labor and presentation, ordinary and special, dirty and clean, just as it does now. Now let us visit several people one last time. A merchant, a farmer, a monk, a noblewoman, a barber, a washerwoman, a child, an elderly widow. Each has a different relationship with appearance. The merchant needs to look prosperous and trustworthy. His clothing tells customers that business is going well, but too much luxury could attract criticism. So he chooses good wool, a clean shirt, a respectable belt. His beard is neat. His hands are clean before meeting an important client. He smells faintly of soap and spice. The farmer chooses durability. His clothing has patches. The patches are carefully sewn. His boots are worn. His hands are rough. His face is weathered. He washes before entering the church on a feast day. His hair is trimmed. His best tunic comes from a chest. He may not match courtly poetry. He does not need to. His appearance tells a different story. The monk's clothing is simple. His grooming follows community expectations. His identity is meant to be shaped by discipline rather than display. Still, he appreciates clean linen. He notices when his sandals need repair. He washes after working in the garden. Simplicity does not mean neglect. The noblewoman has the most elaborate routine. Servants can assist her. Fine combs, imported scents, expensive cloth, jewelry, complex headwear. Her appearance communicates family status, political position, wealth. Her body becomes part of public presentation. That is not always comfortable. She may spend more time dressing than our farmer spends thinking about clothing in an entire week. Privilege can create its own inconveniences. The barber sees everyone. Young men wanting fashionable hair, older men wanting practical trims, travelers wanting beards removed, customers discussing news. He becomes part stylist, part craftsman, part listener. Hair falls to the floor regardless of social rank. The washerwoman handles the foundation of cleanliness. She washes linen, rinses cloth, carries water. Her work is physically exhausting, yet without it, the carefully dressed household would quickly smell considerably less refined. History celebrates kings more often than laundry workers. But kings also need clean shirts. Civilization depends on someone doing the washing. The child does not care much about any of this. The child was washed this morning. The child is already dirty again. This is historically accurate across nearly all civilizations. Hair was combed. Hair is now untidy. A clean garment has acquired an unexplained stain. No witness knows how. The child offers no useful information. Some mysteries are beyond historians. The elderly widow follows routines she learned decades ago. Fashion has changed around her. She remembers when certain sleeves were considered stylish. She remembers when a different head covering was common. Younger women now wear things she finds slightly ridiculous. This too is historically universal. Every generation eventually gets the privilege of disapproving of the next generation's clothing. She washes her face. She combs gray hair. She folds her veil. She does not attempt to look 20. Medieval art and literature often praised youth, as many cultures do. But age brought other forms of social identity. Respect, experience, authority within households. Beauty was not the only measure of value. It rarely is, despite what fashion tells us. Now the town clock does not strike, because many towns do not yet have the kind of mechanical public clock we might imagine. Instead, bells structure time, religious hours, work rhythms, daylight, meals, season. People experience time through routines, and grooming is one of those routines. Morning washing, hair combing, clothing. hand washing, laundry, evening cleaning, repeated, day after day, week after week, year after year. Most history is repetition. This is why history books can be misleading. They focus on the unusual, the battle, the plague, the coronation, the rebellion, the fire, the assassination. But most medieval mornings contain no assassination at all. Most people woke up, put on clothing, looked for breakfast, did some work, complained about the weather, washed their hands, fixed something broken, talked to neighbors, ate, worked again, prepared for bed, and slept. The ordinary majority of history disappears because nobody thought it was worth recording. Nobody writes a dramatic chronicle saying that on Tuesday, Thomas washed his shirt successfully. No monk records that Agnes found her comb after looking beneath a stool. No royal document explains that William's left shoe remained slightly damp all afternoon. And yet events like these filled most lives. That is the world we have visited tonight. Not medieval fantasy, not shining castles, not endless mud either. Just routines. People trying to be clean. People trying to look respectable. People trying to smell pleasant. People comparing themselves with fashionable ideals. People failing to meet those ideals. People deciding it probably did not matter. And people waking up the following morning to do everything again. The fire in our inn is almost gone. Only red embers remain. Our traveler lies beneath a wool blanket. His cleaned face rests against the bedding. His comb waits on the table. The ceramic basin sits nearby. The small mirror catches one tiny point of candlelight. Then the candle is extinguished. The room becomes dark. Outside, the medieval town is nearly silent. The barber's scissors are still. The bathhouse tubs are empty. The market tables are bare. The herbs have been carried indoors. The laundry is folded. The noblewoman's veil rests in a chest. The farmer's best tunic has been put away. The monk walks down a quiet corridor. The washerwoman finally sits down. The child is asleep, despite having somehow lost one sock. And the old widow has closed her shutters. Nothing else needs to happen. Tomorrow, there will be more water to carry, more hair to comb, more shirts to wash, more mud to brush away, more ribbons to choose, more beards to shave, more hands to clean, more people looking into small, imperfect mirrors. The world will wake. The routines will begin again, but not yet. For now, the street is dark. The doors are closed. The fires are low. The bells are silent. And somewhere beyond the town wall, fields disappear into the night. The road is empty. The river moves slowly beneath the darkness. No traveler approaches. No messenger arrives. No urgent news comes from the castle. There is nothing you need to follow. Nothing you need to remember. Nothing you need to solve. You can simply imagine that small basin of water beside the medieval bed, the wooden comb resting beside it, the folded linen, the quiet mirror, the extinguished candle, and the ordinary people of another century, sleeping after another ordinary day. Their strange fashions have disappeared. Their mirrors have tarnished. Their wooden houses may be gone. Their names may be forgotten. But the routines remain familiar. Wash, comb, dress, work, clean, rest, sleep. And as the last ember fades in the fireplace, the room becomes completely still. The town disappears into darkness. The market disappears. The bathhouse disappears. The barber's shop disappears. The narrow streets disappear. The fields disappear. And there is only quiet. A long, slow, comfortable quiet. The kind of quiet that asks for nothing. The kind of quiet in which even history becomes sleepy. And after spending an entire day thinking about medieval combs, laundry, basins, soap, veils, shoes, mirrors, herbs, towels, ribbons, and extremely ordinary personal grooming, there is truly nothing left to do, except sleep.